Sorry, I just realized my mic was muted there. Welcome everyone to Pen to Paper. I'm Leah Lindeman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series, and today we're taking a look at what pantsers can learn from plotters. But before I do that, I am just going to make sure my Instagram has gone live so people there can also watch. Now, between here and there, I'm going to go just because I know that people on Instagram, if they ask questions, they can't. I don't see it here on StreamYard, which is what I use to do these lives. So you might see me going back and forth every once in a while. So if you are on Instagram and you have a question, I will get to it. Just maybe not right away because I might not be going there right away. Okay, so I have a poll for you guys. Let me just pull this up. This is something new I'm trying. Okay, this is the poll. Are you a pure pantser, plotter, or plantser? Let me know. I'll give you a few minutes to put your answers in there. Okay. I will leave this up for a little bit since this is what we're all talking about, right? I would probably say I started off as a pantser. And I have found my nice middle milieu as a plantser, but I sometimes am a plotter for a certain reason. But where I really like to stay in is the plantser. And this is what I'm going to be teaching you guys because really I'm going to give you 5 plotter tools that are going to be super helpful in making sure you don't have saggy middles, plot holes, character drifting or character issues or issues with character development. And if you have these tools, then you'll feel more capable to pants well and not feeling like you're going to get lost. And also, this will kind of probably turn you into a plantser, which is not a bad thing. I think balance is key for pretty much everything in life. So if you are a plantser, you're getting the best of both worlds from being a plotter and being a pantser. Why do I like pantsing? I love the adventure aspect of pantsing. I love going into the unknown and not knowing what's going on and kind of being on the discovery with my characters. Because when you're pantsing, you're writing, you have no clue where you're going. You're just letting the story kind of show you where it wants to go. I'm just going to check here. Okay. Now, if you are a plotter, and this is what I do when I co-write with my authors, because we kind of need to know where we are going. If we don't know where we're going, then we're not on the same page, then we cannot co-write well together. And my last live, I talked about how to co-write without killing each other. I thought it was just a fun little spoof because my first co-writing project was a short story murder mystery. But I am doing other co-projects that are not murder mysteries, but still good to know how to co-write with other people. And for that, you need to plot together because you both need to be on the same page to communicate well and co-write well. If you're a plantser, then you have a little mix of both, and I will show you how in a few minutes. So let me just check the Instagram very quickly. All right, all good there. So I'm going to take down the poll. If you are one of these, go ahead, and this is your last chance to put it in. Okay. I'm in the middle. I'm a plantser. Oh, we've got some comments. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live. Okay. Now let's get into I promised you 5 tools. I'm telling you, these are game changers and they will turn you into a plantser. All right. So the first thing is you have to know your ending before you even start, because knowing your ending or knowing an ending, you can reverse engineer the steps that your characters need to go through in order to reach the end. Now, if your ending shifts to a different ending, that might be a little bit more difficult, but it's still very helpful to know what you think the ending should be. And that's what I did with my murder mystery historical fiction Wisps of Gold. I knew what the ending was going to be. I knew how the bad guy was going to get caught. I knew what was going to happen to the bad guy. I knew what I wanted my main character to do once she, discovered the gold and found fame and fortune. Okay, maybe not fame, but fortune, and her decision with where she was going to go with her life. But in order to get to that decision, I needed to understand, well, what is she needing or wanting throughout this journey? What are the pain points she needs to go through? So just knowing the ending helps you set up what is next that I want to share with you, which is knowing what your character's goals are, their motivations, and the things that they need to come up against in order to grow, to make them interesting, and to achieve the end goal, which is your ending. Okay. I just had a very strange comment. Anyways, we'll keep moving on from there. Okay. And I don't know why, but oh, there we go. I'm learning this new poll tool, so we'll see how that goes. Okay. So, knowing your ending, knowing your character goals and motivations. And this shouldn't just be for your main character, it should be for all your characters because your characters are interacting with one another and they're um, relating to each other and they're affecting each other. So it's important to be super clear on what their goals and motivations are. How involved are they with the main character? How are they moving your plot along and its purpose? Because really, the whole point of the story is we don't want our characters to be stagnant. We want the plot to move forward because we want to move forward with the character as they grow and as they go through their obstacles and overcome their obstacles. And we're going to get into this more with story structure, but just understanding what your characters want, need, their goals, their dreams, their ambitions. You need to take time to do this. Now, usually when I go through my character motivations, goals, and all that, I just run it over in my head. That's how I do it. It is kind of hard to keep track, but when I drive, it's kind of my time to obsessively go over all those details in my head. Like, okay, this character, this is what she wants. How is she going to get there? And I play these scenes and I imagine these scenes in my head as I'm playing them over and over again. And if something's not working, then I'll move. And I promise you, when I'm driving, I drive safely. I'm just, I don't know. It's like my brain's there and it's listening to everything and watching everything, but at the same time, it's somewhere else. It's like a superpower. But there you go. That's what I do. And maybe for you, it's somewhere different. But maybe for you, you don't feel like you can keep that all in your head because there's a lot going on in your life. So guess what? Just write it out. Write out a simple sheet, like character, whatever that character name is. And then one bullet point goals. What are their goals? Just list it out in bullet points. You don't have to do a full outline. You don't have to know everything that's going to go on, but you just need to know what those are. Motivations. What are they motivated by? Whatever. Just put together a page for each character. You don't have to handwrite it. You can type it. Okay. It's just to understand who your characters are more because your characters speak to you. Let me just go over and check here again. Perfect. Okay. So now the next, so I gave you knowing your ending, reverse engineering that to where you want to go, knowing your character's goals, motivations, and yeah, and how they relate to other characters. And the next one is the scene purpose test that I think every pantser should do, especially if they're going into a scene where they don't know what's going to happen and they kind of feel lost with where the story is taking direction. So if they can do this after they've written the scene, then they can say, then they just understand more of where they are. So, what is the scene purpose test? The scene purpose test is this. Number one, does this scene change anything? If it's just the character going to have some coffee at the coffee shop and then they're talking to the barista, does it change anything in the story? No. Unless maybe this is a contemporary romance and the barista is the the person they eventually fall in love with, and maybe this initial conversation is that little spark that starts everything. Then it would be necessary. Or maybe you're writing a murder mystery and you go up to the barista and you're asking a certain question and the barista answers, but they know that they know that they have to answer you because you know they know that you know something. And so then that sparks tension and suspense. So, as long as the scene is changing something or moving the plot ahead, then that's probably a good scene to have. What's another point in the scene purpose test? Does it change anything? What obstacle or conflict gets in the way of your character? So, of like a small goal. So, let's say you're going to the coffee shop and you want the coffee, right? Does it do anything? Does it change anything? If not, if there's no obstacle, if there's no conflict that your character even minutely has to come up against, even if it's emotional, probably not a scene that you need. And the other one um, is what does your character want in this scene from their point of view? And this could be written in first person, third person, second person, which not many people do. But either point or person view that you use, what are they looking for? What do they want? And if it's just for a simple cup of coffee, it's not telling you much. I'm just going to go over here and check. Okay. I'm going to do this every once in a while just to make sure I'm getting everybody. So that is the scene purpose test. That just gives you a quick snapshot to tell yourself, does this scene work? Does it need to be here? If it doesn't need to be here, if it's not moving the story along, then maybe I should check it and start with something new. Okay, and then what I want to go to now is I talked about having some structure, knowing story structure. There's in English class, you may or may not remember this, but there's the 5-act story structure. And then maybe if you're a writer, you may have already read this book called Save the Cat, which has like a 7 point plot beat. You can also go with that as well. There's a lot of like variety to story structures, but it's all pretty much the same thing. So, what is the 7 point beat that you should really be aiming for as a pantser? Is number one, you're setting up your story, you're setting up your character, and you're setting up your setting. We all want to know what's going on, right? And then after that beat, you're going to have the catalyst, the inciting incident. Something happens in this character's life that upends it or kind of veers it off to the side, something that catches the character's attention that is different from their normal environment or their normal lifestyle. And I'm going to quickly check here. Okay. And after that inciting incident, you're going to go into the point where they're like, okay, I'm going to commit to whatever I need to do to push up against this obstacle, reach my dreams, my goals, whatever, right? They could go into it wholeheartedly, they could go into it reluctantly. But either way, they're veering off from their normal life and they're going into an unknown, whether that's emotionally or physically. Now, in the middle, this is where things tend to shift. They go from well, it could depend. They could be proactive at first, and when all these maybe terrible things are happening to them, again, depends if it's emotional or physical, they might start to become reactive, which breaks them down and doesn't give them the power that they need to push through. Or they might be reactive at first and then they become proactive and they're pushing up against these obstacles. But either way, there's a shift there. And things tend to escalate dramatically. Again, whether you're writing like a love story between two people and maybe they find out that this person's been lying to them, or this person is going in a direction they don't want them to go in and it's going to ruin their love story. Or maybe it's a murder mystery and uh, the killer is on the loose and there's more people dying. and it puts the character in a pinch point and the pain point. We're like, okay, I need to push through in order to reach this goal. But this is where the squeeze comes in. So that would be the next plot point. And then the next plot point after that would be, despite doing all that they feel they can do, it's like it's the end. It feels like the end. They've pushed themselves to the breaking point physically, emotionally, all is lost, and they're in this deep, dark place. Hello, Tally Ann Reeds. It's nice to see you here. And that's the next plot point. And then they get to the point where, of course, we don't want our main character to just give up and die. What kind of a story would that be? We would not be inspired to do, live life to the fullest if we had those kind of characters. So the next plot point is when that character pushes past that pinch, pushes past the pain to with new resolve to do what they need to do in order to reach their goal. It's like, when it turns from the heroes down in the dumpster, he just rises up to fight the bad guy. And again, you can take this in the emotional bend too. The last point is when you have the ending, things are resolved. Now, if it's a series, not everything will be resolved, but at least maybe the main plot points will be resolved, and you'll leave a few later for the second book. Or if it's a standalone, it's resolved. And then you bring the reader, actually in official English class, it's denouement, which is kind of like, okay, everything slows down and we're able to like settle with the dust of how the story ended. What can you pantsers do with this plot structure? Well, what you can do is, as you're pantsing and as you're writing scenes, you can maybe draw a graph, write down these plot points, and then say, okay, I've already written scenes, or I've written the part of the book where I'm setting up the character and the setting. And I've already written the catalyst, and I've already written where they've decided they're going to, stand up and do something about this. But, oh, thank you. But maybe you're at the point where like, okay, I don't know where I'm going now. My scenes are going all over the place. Well, you know that the next plot point is where things shift, where things escalate. So now you have to start writing scenes that mirror that plot point. Or maybe you're like shifting, but there's no all is lost. They're not down in the dumps. They're not having to wrestle internally with themselves. So those scenes should be written. This is just very broad strokes of trying to help your story be the best that it can be, take the reader on a journey with you, and give the reader something to feel all those feelings of triumph and challenge and earning. And that's what story is. That's what's going to draw the readers in. So pantsers, you don't have to outline, but just follow some sort of story structure so you kind of know where you're going. And all the little fun details, that's what can be up for exploration. Or maybe some new character comes in and just hits you, and you know that new character has to have a scene or add something to the plot. Then you put that in. Now I'm going to move on to my last help from plotters that can be good for pantsers. And I use this in my short story. I co-wrote basically a book called The Accidental Sleuths with a local author near me named Edgar Jones. I wrote 2 short stories, he wrote 2 short stories, and the last short story we co-wrote together. So the last short story is where we actually had to plot out an outline to know who's the killer, what did they use, why are they killing, all this stuff. But for my 2 personal stories, I pantsed, or I should say I plantsed, because I knew my beginning, I knew my end. I kind of had these scenes scattered throughout in the middle of like, okay, these are very vivid. I want to get to these scenes. So how do I get to those scenes from this scene? And that's where I would let myself pants and discover along with the main character, which her name is Christy, because she loves Agatha Christie. Really, her name is Christiana. I made her Italian. She's fun. She has a nonna, but she calls herself Christy. And so in the second short story that I wrote for her, it's then again in Aquay. And this is what we call planting and payoff. And this really works, like, when you think of this, you think, "Oh, yeah, this really works for mysteries," but this could also work for fantasy, for romance, like, really any small detail that you plant at the beginning that's gonna have some effect later on. Readers love that. It's like you're helping them discover things that, maybe they'll see it when you plant it, but maybe they won't. And then they'll have discussions amongst themselves and it'll get them excited. So, two plantings that I did that really paid off later in the story were these. The weather. The weather was a big one because Christy, she gets to the boat station, the boat launch dock, and the boat picks her up and it's raining and it's kind of starting to storm. And so she gets dropped off at this island where there's this Italian Gothic mansion estate, and she gets dropped off. And so the storm really is a planting of, oh, later on, after the will is read, no one can leave because that rain turns into this massive storm. And they're all stuck on the island together with this crazy killer on the loose. So that was the planting, right? I started something and it grew into a nature character that had a huge effect on where people could move around in the story. Another planting that I did was she gets to her room upstairs and she's just kind of, looking around. She puts her phone down, charges it, which is good because she's going to need it later. But she starts to feel this draft and she looks around the room. The window's closed. There is a joining door to the next to the room, but she checks there. There's nothing coming from there, but it's coming from somewhere. And she doesn't really have time to really take a good look and put her finger on it. But guess what? Later, turns out that the bookcase in front of her, or like the bookcase in her room, is a secret hideout or a secret passage that leads to another part of the house. And that's where the draft is coming from. So, again, a small detail that's planted. And maybe someone, when they're reading it, it's like, oh, the author described a bookcase and there's a draft. I bet there's a secret passageway there. Maybe they'll get it, but maybe they won't. And then it's just a fun discovery item for them later on in their story. They're like, oh, there's a secret passageway. This is so fun and amazing. So that's what the planting and then it pays off later is. So let me just break this. Concisely rename all these things again. So the first tool that a plotter or a pantser can learn from a plotter is knowing your ending. Knowing your ending. Second tool is knowing your character goals, motivations. Your third tool is the scene purpose test. Your fourth tool is knowing your story structure. And the fifth tool is the planting versus the payoff. And that's it, everybody. That is what I've learned having to be a plotter, how I can help myself as a pantser, and now really I'm a plantser. So I hope this helps you all. Please like and subscribe on my YouTube channel. If you're watching from Instagram, please like and follow me. And these come on every Sunday from 3 o'clock Eastern time. If ever you have any questions specifically on any type of writing skill, I'm happy to talk about it. I read all of them. So if you want to comment wherever you're watching from, I will definitely take it into consideration for a future video, future live writing coaching. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. And also, if you enjoy podcasts, this does go on podcasts the next day or two after. Have a great day, everyone.